Hello, welcome to another live broadcast um, of teachings on the unified heart. Actually, this is the first one that I'm doing through the Google Hangout. This teaching is going to be just the beginning, an introduction of what the unified heart is and why it has come into the planet at this time to support us in our awakening journey. My name's Karina Stewart, and I will tell you about a couple of products at the end of this video, but you can check out who I am and more of my what I do in service to the planet at www.newhumanitystore.com. Okay, so the unified heart, this is something that for me has been a journey going back at least 7 years. It could be more. I began receiving the energy signatures for the unified heart and the information that followed with that in terms of what is the unified heart and how we can work with it. Now, as I'm sure many of you know who are listening to this and are attracted to information like this, that we are, as a humanity, evolving into becoming a human race that no longer thinks with our heart, but actually thinks with our heart. No longer thinks with our head, but is moving into thinking with our heart. Now, what exactly that means, for many it means that, you first begin to experience waking up to the compassion in your heart, feeling more empathy for humanity, essentially moving out of the ego self that only views oneself and reality as individualistic and separate from others. So that's a very organic and natural process as you begin to perhaps meditate, reflect on your own personal story, and heal from that, heal from any wounds that you're carrying. So that's really the beginning, and the unified heart comes after that. It comes after the awakening into realization that there is more than just oneself in this silo of one's personal story and personal history. The unified heart begins to awaken in you when you have decided already that you no longer want to live through your ego and you want to transition into living through the heart center. Ultimately, the unified heart is about being able to manifest one's reality through the heart center, because the heart actually carries within it the soul encoding that will inform your outer reality, which I will also refer to as your holographic projection. It informs your holographic projection of what it is you want to experience in this earth journey. Now, the first thing that occurs in awakening the unified heart is actually to unify the heart center. The reason this needs to occur is that when we are living through the ego, which is very typical, that is really what the main planetary consciousness is at this time, is egoic living. When the soul decides it's time, we are going to unify the heart, and that is actually unifying the polarity within ourselves. This polarity can express itself as feminine and masculine. We literally do have two poles of energy within our energy body, that one is masculine and one is feminine, and they run down the right and left sides of the body. Those two energetic poles actually maintain a separation within the heart center, because those two energy poles do not merge and integrate. They actually remain separate, so that in the separation reality, which I call the separation of the heart, we are living in a masculine and feminine energy reality that sees the masculine and feminine as separate, and our experiences are separate. So the feminine being our intuition and our emotions, also what I call the inner world reality. So it can be the inner dream, It can be the dreams that you've held but feel are not accessible to you. The masculine is the outer world reality. It is the projection of your outer world. That outer world is, again, it can be your striving. It can be willfulness. These are ways that we experience it through the egoic perception of oneself. Now, you can imagine, and we experience this, how frustrating it is to experience the separation of the heart as, this inner world desires and dreams, and then outer world striving and struggling, but never actually reaching a point of actualizing that inner world dream or actualizing the inner world passion, the emotions. So there's this, this is ultimately the suffering of the human race, which is the masculine and feminine remaining separate. And, the inner world suffering can result in anxiety and depression. Certain health conditions are really about that feminine energy not being able to integrate with the masculine energy within ourselves. Living the masculine energy separate from the feminine means, that we are creating, essentially, we're in our own lives individually, we're running our life without, without a map. And, each day we wake up and we're thinking about what we want to accomplish, and everything is linear-minded, and we're coming up with our to-do lists, and I'm going to change my habits, and there's sort of this, it's a willfulness to either punish oneself or judge oneself harshly for not achieving what we believe we should be achieving. And those thoughts are really coming from a collective consciousness that we feel, that we buy into as our own values and our own beliefs. And the extreme of that, of the masculine energy in its separated form, are the wars that we see happening, is the extreme poverty we have on our planet, hatred, manipulation, exploitation, control, all of these things that we know is, or we perhaps maybe accept them as thinking they're just human nature, is really the masculine energy living a life force on its own without having integration with the female energy. So in unifying the heart, one of the first steps that happens is actually to unify the masculine and the feminine energy within our heart center. And when that occurs, it is energetically, it's a fusing and emerging of the masculine and feminine energy, so that in fact within our heart center, and then it expands outward to our whole energy body, that no longer are we carrying a masculine and feminine polarity. We're actually unifying it, and this becomes the synergy of the heart. And once that synergy occurs, we are embodied in what is the Christ consciousness as well as the divine feminine consciousness. And I actually call it that we are coming into what is the feminine Christ consciousness. And once that integration of the masculine and the feminine energies within ourselves integrate, it is the feminine Christ consciousness. And that feminine Christ consciousness becomes a super intelligence. It's a super higher intelligence that awakens within our heart center. And this is the first code of the unified heart. And when I say code, I mean an energy blueprint. That energy blueprint is, it's in our heart center. Everyone has this. But what I'm talking about is when it actually comes to life and it becomes activated. And once it becomes activated, it awakens and from the inner heart center, and then it moves outward. And when it moves outward, you can be guided by that feminine Christ consciousness, this super intelligence, which brings you into your mastery as a co-creator. And I'm, very, very serious and joyful about it when I say that what I truly mean being a master co-creator, and that you create your own reality. Now, the reality that it's created is going to be perhaps different than how the mind would create it. It'll be very different. It will be guided. Today I'm just talking about the unification of the feminine and the masculine. So from that point of view, the guidance that you will receive for manifestation in your own life is really guided by a much higher plan. It's a divine plan. It's connected to a whole divinity. We could call it God's plan, God's higher will for us as a God co-creator. And so that's the first aspect of beginning to unify our heart center. Now, I want to take a moment to say that this can happen on its own very organically. It did for me. And the more that people are activating this within themselves because their soul is deciding it's time for that awakening, this can happen. Also, the more as more and more people around the planet are awakening into their unified heart center and activating the codes of the unified heart, then there is a greater energetic signature around the planet to support others to awaken. I have created some tools on my website, newhumanitystore.com, that will accelerate your awakening into the unified heart. So you can check those out. Just on the homepage, there's a couple different categories, and if you click on those, transmissions or unified heart transmissions, you'll see that there's a whole set of transmissions that support you in doing this. And I do recommend them. I mean, of course, again, no one needs any tool, no one needs a healer, no one needs anybody outside of oneself in order to awaken. So I'm not trying to say that this is the only way, because it absolutely is not. But in my experience and with the people that I've worked with who have received these activations, it happens instantaneously. And if you feel guided, to download these transmissions, then this is your higher intelligence from your soul telling you that you're ready for it and it's time for you to just have a quick awakening. So that's my experience and why I created these tools. It's also part of my Earth spiritual mission here to have created these tools to accelerate the awakening for humanity to come into the unified heart. Because ultimately this is going to lead us to peace, and that's God's will, that's God's higher plan, and that's how I'm tapped into it as an individual in terms of my mission. So I encourage you to check those out. I've also written a book called Our New Humanity, and that's also on the website under tools and books. And the book itself explains in detail the unified heart and the 4 codes that are required to awaken one's unified heart center. So let me see. I think there were a couple more points I wanted to make about the unified heart in this part 1. Just to stress that the separation of the heart is a very difficult journey, and it has become the norm. It really has become the norm for us in our human experience, and I'm truly here to tell you that that does not have to be your norm, and it is not the future of the human race. I think some days if we catch the news or we talk to people who are just really in the old consciousness, which is the mind consciousness, there's this idea that things are going worse. They're getting worse, and that we are not evolving and we're not awakening as some of us may hope or have understood from our intuition, but then we look at the reality outside of ourselves and don't see that happening. One of the roles that I have on this planet and what has happened to me in my spiritual journey is that, in fact, I had essentially what's called a walk-in experience. The walk-in experience is, though, with my future self. My future self is coming in through what's called a timeline, a future timeline, that carried my galactic self. And that galactic self is a being that isn't human in form, but it's essentially a galactic being that carries the future codes and the future experience of what is to come for humanity. So all of these teachings that I've received and what I embody today in myself is actually the future of humanity. So you could say I'm a walking future timeline. And what I can tell you is that where we are headed is a heaven on earth experience. That heaven on earth experience is a humanity that is embodied in angelic frequencies. The angelic frequencies, really, to break it down in the most simple way, means that we carry the kindness in our heart and we live through kindness. And that, you know, kindness is a vibration of love, but it's a type of interaction where things are peaceful and gentle, and we are gentle with one another. We're kind. We are kind in the way that children can be kind, and that's what we are moving towards as a humanity. Now that is it's far off into our future, and you know, we will experience it in our personal lifetime in our own created reality. So when you have fully awakened into the unified heart, you then connect with others of like mind who are carrying the same vibrational resonance. And so you will experience this heaven on earth reality. Now, outside of that energetic bubble that you create in resonance with others, may not necessarily have this kindness of heart experience. But as we create these pockets of the heaven on earth experience through the angelic human embodiment, we are bringing forward that future so that eventually the entire planet will actually be totally embraced with this reality. But when we're fully unified as one, from my understanding in this current moment, that is not within our lifetime that we will actually experience the whole planet being unified in oneness through the heart. So, you know, but really I'm trying to give a positive message in the sense that you can experience it now and today, and that comes directly through you activating your own heart center. So I think that's it for today. I am going to do a couple more videos that are going to talk more about each code of the heart. Today I just wanted to cover the first one, which is to unify your masculine and feminine energy poles that unify through the heart center and become the divine feminine Christ consciousness super intelligence energy that awakens in you. And again, you may recognize this happening, you know, organically within yourself, because this is a very organic, natural process to us. And if you do decide you would like some tools to support you in that, I have many on my website, www.newhumanitystore.com, and I welcome you to also, you know, to send your emails to me if you have questions about this or want to know more, and that's Corrina, CORRINA, @earthhive.net. And I thank you for listening, and have a beautiful, wonderful day.